Good morning and welcome to everyone that joined us at today's webinar on simplifying the challenges of modern ITSM. My name is Tatiana and I'm a part of the marketing team here at Hornbill. I'm joined today by my colleagues Steve Boardman, Hornbill's product specialist, and Abdi Hamisi, our sales manager, who will be running today's event. Just to inform you, delegate audio will be muted during the presentation to help facilitate flow and timekeeping. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type into the GoToMeeting questions facility on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll collect the questions and answer them either during or after the presentation. Thank you very much for taking time to attend, and I will now pass you over to Abdi.
Thanks, Tatiana, and welcome to everyone who's joined us this morning for our webinar. So we're going to take you through probably about 45 minutes worth of webinar here, and then we'll try to get in some questions at the end. Just to introduce myself, my name is Abdi. I'm the sales manager here at Hornbill. My colleague Steve Boardman is our pre-sales consultant who's going to take you through a demo of the Hornbill Service Manager solution. Just before we get into the demo itself, let's take a few minutes just to look at some of the challenges as we've seen them and identified them over the years of working with primarily these two types of sets of people as we go out and meet with you, our customers and prospects. So we engage primarily with service desk managers and service desk analysts and support engineers. Obviously, that's not to say that we don't engage with other people, but they're primarily the people we end up speaking to. And really, we're looking at this presentation from a perspective of the challenges that these two roles perceive and experience on a day-to-day basis, and how we might help to facilitate overcoming those challenges. So in terms of identifying some of the key high-level areas where we see these challenges, upgrades, TCO, complexity, usability and customization really are the sort of five key areas that we hope to address today for you and just to explore in a little bit more detail. Okay, so looking at this from the perspective of Sonia, who's our service delivery manager, service desk manager, what are the key challenges that we identify here? The first one being, we mentioned their upgrades. They can be time consuming and they certainly can be expensive. And that's not unique just to service management, that's across the board with whatever software you're using, whether that's either on-premise or even in the cloud. Believe it or not, upgrades can become time consuming and often take up a lot of time and effort to stay abreast with the latest developments from your vendor. Again, a recurring theme for us that we come across with speaking to customers is the concept of customizations. And in fact, they very often need to be re-implemented. So the money, the time, the effort that you invest in customizing the solution to make it viable for your business sometimes has to be redeployed or blown away when you do an upgrade, and that obviously adds to the cost and the complexity of doing the upgrade in the first place. Needless to say, administrator resources are required. So again, oftentimes we get the feedback around the complexity involved in having the right people, the right skills in order to manage and maintain the service management solution. And again, none of these challenges are unique to service management, but given the context, we can see that is true in our space. And then generating meaningful management reporting can be challenging. Again, this is a recurring reason why people engage with us as an organisation to look at replacing their current service desk. One of the typical reasons is around the fact that they just can't get the reporting they're looking for, or when they can, it's very challenging, very difficult, very time consuming, and they're looking for a much more easy way to get around that challenge. And again, this is not unique again, but the concept of doing more with less and moving away from firefighting to actually delivering value back to the business, moving the IT department from being a cost center into a valued business partner. So these are the sort of challenges we're looking at when we speak to customers. From an analyst perspective or service delivery analyst perspective, we're looking at challenges that these sorts of individuals face. I work in this tool all day. It's not very intuitive. Might do lots of stuff, but I just can't find my way around there in a simple, intuitive way, in the same way that I'd expect to do perhaps with some of the applications I use outside of work. And this again is something that we hear regularly from the types of folks that work on the service desk day in, day out. Again, the ability to work from anywhere. The world's changed. Our expectations have changed in terms of where we can do work, how we access work. The advent of mobile and tablets has changed the way we engage with business applications, and that should be true too for service management tools. Again, we're just bringing back that whole idea of technical knowledge. So as the person who has to do the work on maintaining the service desk, one has to have a high degree of expertise in not only the software but the enterprise infrastructure, all the integrations, data sources. There's a high degree of technical knowledge required just to keep the service desk tool up and running, let alone actually just configuring that and making it perform for your organisation. And then over here we've got the last one, which I wanted to point out, which is the concept of having to leave the solution to communicate effectively with colleagues. And this is, again, something we see regularly with speaking to customers, the concept that you do all your work in the service desk tool, but you do all your communication outside of the service desk tool. That can pose a challenge around the capturing of knowledge, but also it's inefficient in that the knowledge sits outside of the service desk tool, and your communication channels are separate to where you actually do your work. Last and not least, obviously, time spent on upgrading traditional tools is time not spent on higher value initiatives that add value to the business, projects that improve the performance of the organisation. So anything we can do to try and reduce the amount of time on upgrades and maintaining a system is obviously going to be beneficial to both the individual but the organisation. So again, stating the obvious, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. And so what we've done at Hornbill is try to come at this from a slightly different perspective. Now, what we have developed is what we're calling our next generation ITSM solution. And what we haven't done here is reinvent ITIL. ITIL is a good, solid foundation of best practice that we all accept and understand. But simply applying another ITIL solution doesn't necessarily address the challenges, particularly the ones that we've identified there so far. So what we've tried to do at Hornbill and have achieved, I think, fairly successfully is come at this from a slightly different angle. We've looked at a broad range of things and trying to incorporate those into our solution. First and foremost is the concept of collaborative service management that we're introducing to you today. The idea here being is around marrying best practice IT service management with modern, intuitive, collaborative, cloud-based technologies, if you like, to give you a much better, more intuitive experience that's more connected, for want of a better term. So what does that mean in reality? So as an organisation, we put together this roadmap, and it's really not a technical roadmap, more of a vision statement, if you like, that articulates the journey we're looking to take you on as a customer. So taking on board what I just said there about the concept of a traditional service desk being perhaps an on-premise solution, maybe even a cloud solution, but one that's built around simply delivering ITIL functionality. There's nothing wrong with those tools, but as I mentioned a moment ago, one of the biggest challenges we identified is the concept of having to leave your tool to go and do your communication, perhaps in email or other informal collaboration channels. The key challenge there being is that all the knowledge, all the expertise that you are able to tap into by emailing colleagues or experts sits outside of the service desk. So by bringing that communication inside of the service desk tool through collaborative working, we believe that we can put forward a much better option for you and your teams in order to much more readily connect with experts, but not only in connecting with them, but actually capturing that tacit knowledge that comes back and forth at the moment, perhaps through informal collaboration channels, bringing that into the tool, allowing you to reuse that information and capture that intelligence, if you like, that IP for the organisation going forwards. Again, collaborative service management can be expanded further into the organisation, but for today's purposes, really all we're going to be talking about is the concept of your service delivery team collaborating in the context of level 2 here. But we could be talking to you about expanding that collaboration through to the whole of the IT team across in level 3 or level 4, where you engage with your end users and get them to collaborate with each other to do peer-to-peer support. Oftentimes we find the best person to answer a finance query, and perhaps how do I add or remove something to the finance system, isn't necessarily the knowledge that IT have. It's knowledge that's held within the finance department. So this peer-to-peer support enables that side of things. Okay. So what does Service Manager, our new solution, offer? Well, it offers the concept of sharing knowledge and ideas, being able to collaborate with your colleagues globally, boost your productivity through smarter working and easier access to knowledge, and be able to work from anywhere as we'd expect these days. So in saying that, one of the things we've tried to really focus on here is the experience that your analysts and your end users have, and looking on trying to draw from the consumer space and bringing in some of the functionality that we know and expect outside of work, where we're always connected, we're up to date with all the information that we need, and we do that in real time. So we can bring that context and that experience into the workplace. That would be a benefit for all. So what does Service Manager offer you? Well, it offers you the ability to connect from any device, from anywhere, at any time, effectively. So you're always connected. You can do that in any language, and that's both in terms of being able to use the solution in any language, but also in terms of being able to communicate across language barriers with colleagues and in different geographies who are speaking a different language. We'll see some of that today in the demo from Steve. So Hornbill Service Manager is entirely a cloud-based solution, and the premise here is that we'll focus on all of the deliverables, if you like, and you focus on taking care of your customers. All you have to do effectively is log in and use the solution. Naturally, there's a bit of configuration to do along the way, but in essence, there's no maintenance, no upgradability. All of that stuff goes away, as we'll see in the next couple of slides. So we talked about upgrades being a challenge for most organizations across whatever product suite they're using in whichever line of the business that you're talking about. So one of the aspirations that we had in setting down this path of building a new solution was the concept of getting rid of upgrades altogether. And that doesn't sound as strange as it might at first glance, because in your consumer life you're probably well accustomed to using things like Google Maps or Facebook, and all of those tools. You never stop and upgrade them. They just constantly improve and get better over time, and you just log in and use them. So taking on that concept, we've brought that into our thinking here, and we've built a solution here where literally there is no upgrades. They're all automatic. You log in, you take advantage of the new functionality, and we develop that, release it. It's available to you straight away, and we actually even train you in the product on how that new functionality benefits you in going forward. So with Hornbill, one thing to take off the box is the fact that there's no upgrades, so that reduces the cost, the complexity, the time, all the inconvenience of having to take care of that aspect. As far as the upgrades being automatic is concerned, that means that you're always up to date with the latest features. There's simply no service disruption, and basically your customizations keep on working. And again, that's just picking up on the point I made earlier on in terms of one of the key challenges that perhaps you may have encountered yourselves around the fact that you've customized some forms, you've customized some aspect of your service desk tool, or indeed other tools, and then come upgrade time, you have to then reapply those customizations, or they're lost as a result of the upgrade. So again, with Hornbill Service Manager, you can rest assured that any investment in time, resource, or indeed capital that you've spent on actually making customizations are guaranteed going forwards. Last but not least, before I hand over to Steve, we believe at Hornbill that service desks aren't that complicated. You should be able to get one up and running in a relatively short space of time, and most importantly, we don't believe you should have to pay to do that. So as an organization, we have a concept of free implementation. So as a customer coming on board with Hornbill, we will actually work with you to set up and implement your service desk solution, get you up and running, do your integrations, all for free as part of a switch-on package that we can come back to and talk to towards the end of the webinar today. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Steve. I would invite any questions, if you have them, just please pop them into the questions pane on GoToMeeting, and we'll come back and address any questions as we go, or towards the back end of the session. Thanks, Steve.
Great, thanks Abdi. Morning everybody. So as Abdi said, we're going to spend probably sort of 30-35 minutes just having a quick look at Service Manager. We'll look at that in the context of our analyst community, the views that our managers might be interested in, touch very briefly on the sort of back-end admin so you get some visibility of that, but perhaps just as importantly look at what does the end user experience look like, what's the portal and mobility aspects of Service Manager, and what's it have to offer. So first and foremost, I'm actually going to log in as Graham, who's the character that Abdi introduced. I'm going to do that manually on my system, but we do support single sign-on against your directory services, and we use SAML 2.0 as the secure protocol to do that. So we'll just come in as Graham. Now, when Graham logs in to Service Manager, the first thing that he's presented with is his landing page or his newsfeed. And the observations we quite often get is, well, first of all, potentially looks nothing like a service management tool, but if you bear with me, hopefully it'll all make some sense. So what we actually see on this newsfeed is information that Graham, as an analyst, is interested in the context of service management. So if we just have a quick look down here, we can see changes that have been advertised or been currently in flow. We can see updates to requests that Graham is following. Further down, we can see documents that have been shared with him, ongoing discussions and collaboration around problems that have been identified, major incidents, changes, etc. So what was really key to take away from this is Graham's actually got one place to go or to view to see everything that's important to him. And how do we go about populating of what's important to Graham? Well, first and foremost, we could simply choose to follow requests, and by following the requests, any updates to those requests will be promoted up onto my newsfeed. So that'd be one example of a source of the newsfeed data. Other sources might be updates that are applied to workspaces that Graham is a member of. One example of that is our change management workspace, and we can see here there's been an update to that workspace. If I drill down into the workspace, I can look at the timeline for that workspace. I can see who the members of that workspace are. And being a member of that workspace, as soon as anything is published or posted in here, either manually by a member or automatically using our business process tool or from a third-party tool, because I'm a member of that workspace, those updates also go out onto my aggregated newsfeed, which gives me a sort of chronological order of all the updates across all the workspaces that I'm interested in. Now, it's not just about updates to tickets you're working on or notifications around changes or problems that are ongoing, as valuable as they are. It's also about this collaborative way of working. And another use of workspaces might be actually bringing together your analyst community and creating, for example, a first-line FAQ space. And this might be, as I say, might be an area where you put all your first-line analysts in, but also maybe your second-line experts, your apps experts in there. But what it will do is it will afford those first-line analysts the ability to come in here and ask questions. So they could be working on an issue for their customer. In this example here, James's customer has got an issue with deleting folders. By posting it in here, any other member of that workspace will get notified that there's an update. They'll see it in their newsfeed. They can pick it up on their native iOS or Android apps, and they can come in and hopefully, if they're feeling helpful, they can provide some answers that are going to help James and ultimately resolve his customer's issue. So picking up on one of the aspects that Abdi talked about here, if you happen to work across language barriers on here, we can see that both Pablo and Pierre have responded in their local language, but Graham speaking English here just translates that so you can see what the contributions are. And you can also see here that actually whilst both Pablo and Pierre have provided answers, 4 of his colleagues have actually validated the answer that Pablo provided. So in this case, James or Graham can look at this and say, do you know what, I've got confidence in that answer, it's been validated by my colleagues, I can go ahead and I can use that to pass back to my customer. Which is great because that helps in the here and now. But what we're actually doing is sort of informally building up this sort of tacit knowledge that, again, referring back to what Abdi was talking about, outside of, in traditional sort of tools, all of this communication tends to happen outside of the tool, maybe in email conversations or, discussions by the coffee machine. None of it's actually captured and reusable. So what we've actually got here is the ability to capture it in workspaces, and then using the search bar at the top, if I was to look for another area, maybe anything to do with our VPN software or ShoeSoft software, I can do a quick search. It's going to bring me back all of the relevant posts or comments in there with a relevant score against the search criteria. Now, there's quite a few results that have come back, so maybe I want to narrow it down by just things that have been posted in the last 6 months or been posted by a particular colleague who I know is an expert in that area, or I might simply just want to restrict it back to a single workspace and show me if there's any of the content in there. So fantastic, there's been a post in that first line FAQs. And again, we can see that we've asked a question here, Brian's provided an answer, and that answer has been validated by our colleagues again. So it's a fantastic way to tap into that tacit knowledge, or that informal knowledge that would otherwise have been lost. So there's just some examples of how we might use the newsfeed on there. Now, I've talked a little bit around knowledge and using it in this guise. We absolutely recognise that as well as that sort of informal, unstructured knowledge, there's also a need for structured knowledge. So we look on the left-hand side here. On the Hornbill platform, sitting alongside our Service Manager app is a document manager application that would provide each of our users with the ability for them to create or upload documents. In this case, we can see some examples of sample change processes or our BYOD policy. If I drill into one of these documents, I can see here, just to highlight here, Harry is our sort of in-app training, so Harry Hornbill here. So he's just given us sort of nano or micro training on new features that we've released. So review dates, thanks Harry, got that, fantastic. So looking at this document, I can see here that I've shared it with a couple of colleagues, both Rosemary and Daniel, and I've shared it with them before we've actually published this document. What that allows us to do then, if we give them the permissions, is them to actually work on this document and add revisions and keep a full revision history of that particular document, to the point that we're actually then happy to publish that document and move it in to libraries and make that more widely accessible to the users that have access to those different libraries. We can attribute those documents with particular tags, which again might make searching a little bit easier for people looking for particular documents, but it also helps us with organising the documents that we've actually got in Service Manager. Just before I have a look at that in a little bit more detail, just wanted to comment that this document has a timeline. I can receive updates about this document when it's shared with me or when it's been updated. And that's exactly true for requests and people and assets, etc. They're all first-class social objects in their own right. Therefore, as we say, we should be able to follow and we should be able to collaborate on their content. Coming back though to those tags, if I go back to my documents, one of the challenges we were looking to address here was ones that our customers keep telling us about, which is over the weeks and months and years, people are always creating documents, and there's various versions of documents, and then people leave the business and someone comes in, can't find an old one on a network share, so they create a new version of it. And what we do is then end up with various sort of unmanaged or unowned documents on network shares that we don't know exist. It's very difficult to actually find what we're looking for, or one version of the truth. So what we've introduced here is actually the concepts of self-organizing collections. So what I've defined here is a collection where actually all I've done is say I'm interested in all documents that are carrying particular tags. In this case, my process design tag. So that means it's going to go away and it's going to bring me back all of those process documents with that tag, and any documents that are added in the future with those tags will automatically drop into my collection. Partnered with the fact that we'll only ever have one version of these documents live, we'll have full revisions against each document, but there'll only ever be one version of that document which is accessible and usable. So really neat and good feature to use here. Moving on though, away from our sort of knowledge and having a look at Service Manager functions specifically, we can just highlight over here on the Service Manager app. Now when Graham comes in, his rights and roles are going to govern what he can see and what he can do, both in terms of the collaborative features we've looked at, the Document Manager, but also in the context of Service Manager. So on here, Graham's got the rights to work with or look at the service or the request list, but he does so in the context of those rights and roles. So in this example, he's actually got the rights to work with incidents, service requests, problems, changes, known errors. If he didn't have the rights to work with known errors, for example, that icon would not be visible to him. So nothing's grayed out, it's purely sort of just context sensitive. Graham can also look at all incidents or all incident types by just clicking the relevant option, and he can do that in the context of various default views that are provided. He can do that by looking at any team that he happens to be a member of. So you can see here that Graham belongs to multiple teams. So I could just look at the first line requests that are in there, or I can look at any ticket type that belongs to any team that I'm a member of, or other things like ones I've been following, I've been added as a member or a subject matter expert, which I'll touch on, or any tickets that have been raised against services that my team happens to support. Various default options that are on there. And to complement that and help with your searching, if we sort of work from left to right, we can see we've got a quick filter option on the left-hand side. And I can simply start typing in there. So I could put, show me everything that's a VPN related in the context of those views, or show me everything that Brian's currently working on or responsible for, or where, Anna is the customer. So I can use that same quick filter to find a multitude of parameters. But what we've also recognised is, as well as having those default views, each analyst wants a bit more control over their own views. So we've tried to accomplish that in a couple of different ways. First and foremost, each analyst can come in and create their own views. And they can do so by simply using a clause builder. So none of the analysts need to understand anything about the back end. They don't need any SQL skills or understand how the table structure works. They can simply come in and start building parameters. So we can see here we're looking at high priority incidents, and as I say, adding these in, it's just a case of saying, well, actually, I might want to have a look at all high priority incidents that are raised against a particular service. So I can go through and I'll select the relevant options that are available to me. As well as creating those views and being able to switch between those views, we can also provide each analyst with their own personalized dashboard and provide them with the ability to create the content or charts that are going to be presented and viewed on that dashboard. So here we utilize effectively the query that we're interested in creating a chart on, so high priority incidents, we've set those parameters. But when I'm creating my charts, I'm now saying, okay, well, I want to look at those high priority incidents by the teams that are responsible for them, or the individual analysts that are looking after them. Or if I wanted to take a different view on this, I might simply create another one, which is looking at it by customers. So I might want that as a donut chart, and we'll group that by customer on there, and we're going to preview what it's going to look like. So very quickly and easily, I can use those filters, priorities high, status is open, and type is incident, and I can look at that in a variety of different ways. I can then choose which of those charts are visible, so that when I come back to my request list, I can choose to toggle between my list view and my personal dashboard view, which is going to show me those charts that I've created that I'm interested in. And because it's my personal dashboard, I can move things around, I can expand them, make them smaller. But out of the box, all of these automatically support drill down. So if I wanted to have a look at the second line, high priority incidents, simply select that option and drill in. If I want to come back to that, I can just unselect the option, and again we can drill down further. I was looking at the first line ones and I decided that actually I wanted to export that data. I can take that out in CSV very quickly with the various attributes that are important to me. So it's very useful to your analysts to give them a little bit more flexibility in terms of how they want to work. Ultimately, as an analyst, I can choose the columns I want to work with, the order they're in, which ones I'll sacrifice if I'm working on a smaller res screen, and I might set myself a home view that I can always default back to with a single click, depending on where I've sort of taken myself in context there. So I hope that's just a quick overview of how an analyst might sort of spend a lot of their time. We'll look at a concept of visual task boards in a little while. But it moves us now on to really sort of raising requests into Service Manager. Well, there's 4 ways that you can primarily do this. First is doing it manually, when picking up the phone, which we'll have a look at in a second. The second is actually having emails coming in and automatically having tickets created from those emails. So that's another option available to you, as is the option for you actually just to have access to those mailboxes inside Service Manager, as we do here, and giving the option to review and actually manually create a ticket off the back of one of those incoming emails. The third option is using our sort of self-service portal. We'll have a look at that. And the fourth option is using our XML APIs to actually raise tickets from third-party systems. And again, we can always talk about that in a bit more detail if that's important to you. But going ahead and looking to raise a request, just before I do that, there's a couple of key components that underpin how Service Manager works. So I'm just going to switch and have a look at the admin console for you. So I'm just going to log in as admin into this interface. It's not a training exercise, so I'm just going to quickly go to our Service Manager app and the configuration and look at my workflow options. So there's really 2 sides to this. The first of this, the more traditional one, is really to do with business processes, so the fulfillment side once a ticket's been raised. I really just wanted to touch on here, Service Manager provides you with a graphical drag and drop canvas where you can build your own processes. Service Manager is non-prescriptive, so we don't dictate that you have to use service level timers or send particular emails or any of that sort of logic. All of that you will build yourself in here. Define the stages that you want to work with, in this case 3-stage instant process. Decide routing rules, human tasks, automated tasks, checkpoints, decisions, etc., etc. All of those will be built graphically and easily in here. And that can go from the more simplistic instant processes right through to your much more evolved change processes with authorizations, concepts of expiry, delegate authorizations, parallel processing. All of that is completely catered for. And the best part is all of this sort of complexity is hidden from the end users, both the analysts and the end users when they're working on a ticket, and we'll show you that through a graphical heads-up display shortly. So that's really to do with the fulfillment side. But when it comes to the logging experience, what we've tried to address is an issue where in a lot of these traditional tools, when you go to log a request, you get presented with a big form with lots and lots of fields on there. And you need to, it's difficult to understand which fields you need to complete in different scenarios. Very difficult to drop anybody off the street or, sort of from a training perspective, to drop them in and actually start using that without sort of an in-depth training exercise in scenario 1, scenario 2, etc. So what we've done here is actually tried to take a lead from our consumer life. And if anyone's ever bought insurance online through a Go Compare or Compare the Market website, those types of ones, if you go there and you said, right, I want to buy insurance, they just ask you a simple question, one after another. So in that example, it would be, well, what type of insurance are you looking for? If you're looking for car, home, life insurance, if it was car, then they might ask you for your registration number and then the type of insurance that you're looking for, comprehensive or third-party fire and theft. So what we've tried to do is actually leverage that. And you can see here on the designer again that I can simply ask questions. All these blue nodes just denote standard questions. So who am I talking to? What are you calling about? If they were calling about a finance issue, maybe you've got your own custom set of questions you want to ask, or if it was a new starter, again, different questions. However, if it was a desktop support issue and you were raising it as a break fix, you might want to ask for the category, the priority, asset details, etc. So it just gives you a way to sort of map out what that's going to look like. But with that in mind, let's go back and have a look at that in practice. So I'm just going to go ahead and raise a new ticket. Now again, another challenge that we've tried to overcome here is the agile one of picking the phone up, speaking to the customer, and then saying, okay, well, where am I going to log this information? Do I open an instant logging form? Do I open a service request logging form? I start taking some information and suddenly realise that it's not not the type of ticket I had the form open for, so I have to either cancel that down, raise a new one. So what we've tried to do here with Progressive Capture is give the option through Raise New of actually getting that information first. Who am I speaking to? What are they calling about? So we can see here that I'm speaking to the right person. I'll use myself as an example. Maybe Steve's calling for an update on one of his tickets that's still open. If he is, fantastic, I'll drill into that ticket and give him the information that he's after. If he's not and he's looking to log a new ticket, well, what are you actually looking to report? It's a VPN issue. Let's put it unable to connect. So we can see here as we're answering these questions, it's one at a time. They're just collapsing down and being validated on the right-hand side. Maybe Steve takes various support services from us. So desktop support, this one might fall under. And maybe I now know enough at this point to say, well, actually, I'm going to classify this as an incident or a service request, etc. Now, just for demonstration purposes, if I'd chosen to do this as a change request, it might take me down a completely different branch. So, asking about uploading supporting documentation. Whereas if I choose the incident route, it might take me through to a list of relevant categories. And on here, I can just choose the relevant category and associate that. Priorities, if they're important to you, make them mandatory if they're important to you. Maybe it's important to associate some of the customer's assets. What do we know that he uses? So I might attribute his laptop. His phone might not be relevant, but if there's other assets which he doesn't own, I want to add, I can simply come in here and start putting asset tags in, and I could associate those as well if need be. VPN issue, so where does Steve normally work? Well, he's normally out of Leeds, but actually might be working from home, which is why he's got his VPN issue, so site information might not be relevant. Now, this is really just by way of an example of what you can do and the questions you can ask. It's entirely up to you whether you ask one or two or multitude on here. It's really your data capture exercise. But once that's raised, it will take us into the instant form, and it's showing us a heads-up display which is representing a business process that's supporting this ticket. And in that business process we looked in the back end, we had 3 stages: clarify, resolve, and accept. And we can see checkpoints that have been achieved so far, what needs to happen next, and what other future steps need to go through to resolve this ticket. So what's happened here is an email's been sent, it's been assigned to the first line team, the priority was set, because we did that during the capture exercise, but it's now taken me in context on the action bar to where I need to achieve the next action. So it's looking for someone in the team to take ownership, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And on doing so, that checkpoint becomes achieved, the process moves on, and in this example, it's actually created a task or an activity for someone to look into this issue. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these today, but there's a number of really key sort of manual options that you can perform on here. So the first and sort of traditional one is simply putting a textual update in and deciding whether that's customer facing or not. And I'll apply update on there. But it might also be that I want to take a screenshot. So I might simply want to cut and paste an image in here. So that could be the error, for example. And again, I can apply that update in there. What you'll then see in that ticket is in its timeline are all those updates being applied in line, nice and easy, nice and simply into this particular request. Other options might be creating custom buttons to go off and search third-party tools. So in this example, I might be passing through the summary of this ticket into YouTube to see if there's any videos that might help my customer resolve his issue. There might be one here, we're not interested in listening to that, but I might want to share that with my customer. So I can simply come in here, pick up the link, come back to my ticket, drop that in an update, make it customer facing. And then the beauty of that is I can allow my customer to view and watch that in line via the self-service portal. Other options though, we might want to be scheduling callbacks, we might want to add attachments, and we can do that through a simple sort of exposure of the file structure, or we can just drag and drop attachments in here. We may want to look for other related tickets or any other knowledge that might be out there that's going to help me resolve my issue for my customer. So on here I might say, okay, I want to look for other VPN related issues. And it's going to go off and find various incidents and problems and known errors on there, quite a few results, 24 in fact. So if I want to again narrow this down, I might just be looking for any problems, see if anyone's got any workarounds on here, only ones that are still open, and we can search again. So we can see here that we've got hopefully a closer match on here, and I could go in and review the information to the point where I can say, well, actually, I now want to link this. And by linking this, it's going to do 2 things. First and foremost, it's going to expose a linked request section on the form, and that'll only be exposed if we actually populate the data in there. And that's exactly the same as true if we're adding assets or attachments or any other entity to this. We won't use the real estate unless we need to. But by doing that, this will happen. So we can now see our linked request section is there. But also in my action bar, a potential solution has been automatically pushed down to me because there was a workaround associated to that particular problem. And on here, I can look at the workaround information and I can choose whether that workaround is actually a solution for my customer, or whether I can actually say thanks, but that didn't work for me. And it's possible to have multiple solutions available to you at any given time. So again, coming back to this, we can email out, we can change the customer, escalate, etc., etc. But ultimately, we might come back to the process which which had an activity that's assigned to us. So at that point, there's really sort of three things to consider here. Is if I'm working on this ticket and I'm working through to resolution and I resolve it, great, I'll complete that task. But if I need help from other people, what do I traditionally do? Well, I might choose to assign that ticket away, and I can still do that. Or I might choose to create a activity and pass it on to somebody else for them to look into it, but I'll still keep ownership of the ticket. What we've done is actually complement the options, which give you the ability just to drop in, perhaps slightly more informally, maybe a subject matter expert into the conversation. So I might invite Rosemary into this conversation. Now, Rosemary might not normally be a member of my team or have the rights to look at my instance, but I can elevate her rights for this ticket by adding her as a member. I can also come in here and mention Rosemary. Can you look at this, please? So what this will then do is actually push a targeted communication out from Rosemary, both via the desktop notification, so she can see here she'll get mentioned and she's been added to a ticket, but also on a native iOS and Android app to pick up that notification and react. So we can do those options, but as I say, ultimately we could come back to the fact that we had a desktop issue to look into, or a VPN issue to look into, sorry, and I could say here, we just did a reconnect, cleared the issue, we can record the time that we're spending on these things, and I can choose one of my definable outcomes. And that could then go ahead, in this case, do a number of things. It's stopped the timer for me, it's moved my ticket into a resolved state, it's completed the process, and also in the timeline here, we can see that it's fired off a resolution email automatically to my customer. So I can really automate as much of that as I need to, but it's not mandatory if you just want to work on these things manually. Okay. A couple of other areas I want to just touch on here, just looking at the time, is maybe off the back of this incident, I wanted to raise a change or a problem. Well, I can do that. We can promote up the information we're looking at. We can use progressive capture forms, standard questions or customized questions, provide whatever information is required, categorize again. Also, we might want to, associate other assets if we need to that particular change. But we'll just raise this change through, and just want to demonstrate a couple of features on here. One is that the form layouts and the way you're going to work this is going to be very, very familiar. It'll be the processes that are different that drive the behaviour on here. Now we can come in and we can customise the forms, add our own fields, etc., and that's available on a per service basis. But I'm just going to move this process through a couple of stages. So I'm going to take ownership of this particular change. In this particular change example, I might just want to validate this change, so it looks valid, and we might do this just to have a gate to say, well, is it worth our change team spending their time on this? On doing so, we can see we've moved to the planning stage and we've got an impact assessment that needs to be completed. That could be a good example of where we might use parallel processing, where we push that out to multiple participants, maybe someone that looks after our apps or our security or infrastructure. But again, in this example, I'm just going to go in and choose one of the customized options. I'm going to pick low, and I know in this example that's going to bypass the need for a backout plan, and we're going to move through to our approval stage. And we can see here that we've added multiple approvers. We've got Brian, Graham and Daniel. Now the reason I wanted to get to this stage was to introduce another concept that we have here, which is visual task boards. So in this occasion, I've created a visual task board called Change Management. And if we look at change management, what this gives me is a bird's eye view or a helicopter view of all the changes that are going through your change management process. And if we have a look at the request that we were working on there, which was 173, we can see that it's automatically sat in the cab stage waiting to be approved. And that's automatically made its way there through the business process. So as we completed those actions and tasks, it automatically moved it into the correct place. That's not to say that we can't manually drag and drop tickets across, but I like to think that as a manager, I've got confidence that this is a real time view of what's happening, because the business process can automate that and take that human element out of that. Now, it's great for using it for change, but it could also be used for things like breach boards from an incident management point of view, because I might want to look at all the tickets that are going to breach today in the next half hour have breached. And again, our escalation actions can automate the promotion of those tickets onto these particular boards. But again, whether it was procurement and the various life cycle stages you have in your procurement process, or whether you wanted a board looking at all the different areas within your infrastructure that you've got problems, so your ERP systems, your comms, security, various different uses for these visual task boards. But coming back to our change board and drilling back into that 173, we can see that the approval decision was due to be made. So I'm going to go ahead and make my decision. So yeah, go ahead. So I appear to have lost the volume. So on here. I'm just going to try and turn the volume up, see if you can hear us again. So I'll just wait for some confirmation on that. Bear with me 2 seconds. I'm not sure what happened with the volume there. Okay, so it looks like it's picking up on the volume again, so I'm going to continue on with this. So I'm going to go, all I was doing here was just completing an approval decision in order to move this process ahead. And we can see here now that that process has moved on. It's waiting to be scheduled. I can come in and schedule this particular change. But what I wanted to demonstrate was if I come back up to my newsfeed here, we can now see that this particular change we're working on, 173, has been pushed up to the change management workspace. And because I'm a member again of that workspace, it's now been pushed up to my newsfeed. So that was really just to demonstrate that sort of full circle and where we started from. No volume. Try that again. Okay, apologies, but I seem to have some issues with the sound, but if anyone else is experiencing that issue, if you'll be able to hear me to say that, but if you are, just let us know through the chat and we'll see if we can resolve that for you. Okay, so some of the other options just on here. Asset management is a classic one that we have in here. So again, you can import your assets from various solutions, whether that's from something like SCCM on an automated basis or whether it's from a simple CSV form. We can manage our assets within here. We can search for different types of assets. If we have a look at a particular asset here, we can have a look at all the information, the attributes that we've recorded against those. So whether they are physical location, whether they're interested in the financial, supplier information, it's entirely up to you what you record, but also what's specific against that particular asset type. So the IP address, computer name, etc. We can also store attachments against those assets, have a history of where that asset has been associated to tickets, where it's linked to other tickets, and as you'd probably expect, a full audit trail of all the changes that may have been applied to any of the fields that have been updated on that particular asset, and the ability, if we want to add custom buttons to launch third-party remote control tools, etc., etc. Okay, so at this point, I'm just going to switch context and go back and have a look at the end user's experience of Service Manager. So I'm just going to go to our service portal on here. So just as I'm logging in, just want to make a couple of observations. First and foremost, the portal is completely customizable through the admin tool without any coding, which will allow you to brand and customize the look and feel. It's available in any language out of the box, and it also supports single sign-on. Okay. Just by way of an example, this is one of our existing customers and what they've sort of done in terms of branding it to respect their corporate look and feel. But I'm just going to log in here. Obviously, your users wouldn't have to go through this step, but I'm going to log in as a particular end user. And we'll come in as Steve. And when Steve lands, he's going to be presented with his services landing page, which represents the services that Steve is subscribed to. And by default, it's showing me my favorite ones that I've selected. But if I wanted to, I can have a look at all the services that I'm subscribed to. Obviously, again, colors and what have you are completely configurable to you. You can look at all of your services that have been marked as been impacted and obviously what the issue is. And I can look at any of my services where I've got active requests open against them. If I have a look at my favorites though and expose more, this is where I'd set what my favorite is. I can see how many active requests and maybe I want to jump in immediately to get help. But what I might be interested in is actually, well, as well as me going to raise a request, is there any information that might stop the need to actually raise a request on here? So when you're creating your services, you can also define FAQs that are going to be presented to your customers when they're looking at services they're subscribed to. So just a couple of examples here. So you might have things like how to create a pivot table in Excel, and you might embed links off to third-party documents. It might be stuff you hold in SharePoint, or it could be links to videos that you want them to watch and play, which will solve their issues. And we can see here that the users can rate whether they were helpful or not. We can see how many times they've been accessed, and we can define as many of these as we require against those services. So signatures and such like in Outlook, or maybe how do I share a calendar in Outlook? And again, there might be some content video that's going to help the user on there. We've also got access to our active and closed tickets that we've raised against that service. And if we drill down and have a look at one of those tickets, we can look at the type of level of information you can expect to see. So at the top, the users can see the heads-up display. You can decide whether that heads-up display is visible at all, whether you just show the stage names or whether you expose all the checkpoints as well. And you can do that on a per service basis. This particular request is in a resolve state, so it's actually giving our customer the ability to provide feedback rate the service they've had, and also validate whether that resolution works for them. The timeline shows them all of the updates that have been applied, so they can see, again, any content that's been shared with them, video, any images that have been shared, again, all in line without me having to open and expose all of those particular updates. And here we can see a classic example where we're collaborating or having a conversation between the analyst and the customer, and all the updates are relevant to the original post. All that simply means is, in a lot of the more traditional systems, as updates come into a ticket, they simply get appended to the bottom, and where you've got 50 or 100 or 200 updates, it's very difficult to tie the last comment to the post that actually related to. So this gives us a nice slick way of doing that. But if we come back up and look at desktop support, it may be actually there was nothing there in the FAQs to help me. I might want to go ahead and raise a support request. So in doing so, it simply takes me through a progressive capture experience in the same way that your analyst would have. So word printing issue, unable to print. Again, you can choose which questions you ask, which ones are mandatory or not on here. Any custom questions, so it's only affecting me. I'd prefer to be contacted by phone on this occasion. Yep, I am at my usual site. It is my laptop that I've got this issue on. I could add any more attachments that I want to on there, and I go ahead and raise that request. Immediately by doing so, it will take me into the details of the request. If I want to start adding more information, adding more attachments, etc., all of that information is there for you. Okay. So I'll just come back up to my services to give you that sort of feel and that experience that we have on there, and I'll come out and I'll just look to really wrap up by coming back into our MI and analytics options that we've got available. So just sort of coming into the admin tool, there's really a couple of different sides to reporting MI analytics that are available on Service Manager. So the first option, just so we're clear on that, is each analyst has the ability to create their own views, define their own charts, and therefore create their own personal dashboard without the need for any sort of technical skills or understanding of how that data works. But if we've got the people that are looking for more in-depth reporting, trending analysis, etc., then that's exposed for our reporting options. Out of the box, you get the ability to create your own reports. You can create reports using or against the entities that we have in our system, or using a SQL designer. This allows you to just go in and do sort of table joins and produce reports. If we have a look at maybe our open incident by priority, we can see here that we are pulling information from particular tables. We might be selecting particular columns, grouping and sorting as need be, previewing the data before we actually run it, looking at our publishing options in terms of, do we want charts, do we want just the top 5 results, what type of chart, which columns are we grouping it on, and then we can export these either, and view them via a browser in HTML format, so we can see our charts on here. Or if we come back, we can also export these to CSV, and again, we could just open those up on here. If we're more interested in the more analytical side, then we can start to look at measures, widgets, dashboards, etc. Now, measures give you the ability, using our trending engine, to build a measure and set a target against it. Now, a measure might be something as simple as how many tickets, instance problems are we raising on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, or how many are we closing, or what's our average resolution time, what's our first time fix rate look like. And we can set targets for each of those measures. And then we can see against that day, week or month sample interval how we're performing against the target we've set. And the trend line will show us how we're doing as well. And that's great in isolation, but what we can then do is actually take those measures and use them as data providers to create widgets that we want to put onto our role-based dashboards. And these can be scorecards where we put the measures, they can be count lists, target counters, typical charts. And we're doing that, so as I say, that we can then promote those up onto dashboards and share those dashboards with the various people, and we can wallboard those dashboards if need be. But just for time purposes today, I'm just going to demonstrate that through our slideshow option, which actually allows you to daisy chain multiple dashboards together and run those and have them interchanging on a defined interval. So we can see here there's just a type of dashboards or charts or widgets that you can create. It will just give you a sort of feel for what's achievable. So I'll just let that run through a couple of screens. And the final one. Fantastic. So again, just by way of an example of the type of content that you can expect. So at this point, I've sort of taken up your time, sort of half an hour or so, so I'm just going to pass you back to Abdi to wrap up.
Thanks, Steve. Great demo. I know we've had a few questions, so we'll come back and have a look at those in a moment. What I wanted to do is just to give you a quick wrap up here and take you through a few slides here just to give you an idea of what we can do next, really. So just to recap on Graham and Sonia's experience, so how does Hornbill make Graham's life easier Well, I think you all agree it's a modern, intuitive, powerful solution that delivers a lot of ITSM capability, as you've seen there from Steve. It allows you to much more readily connect with and find your subject matter experts and information that's been captured through that tacit knowledge collection. Allows you to resolve complex issues much more simply through that ability to mine that information, but also connecting you with across language barriers and geographies based on the fact that you can work from anywhere with the solution. And without having to do any upgrades, then you can focus 100% of your time on resolving customer issues. From a service delivery manager's perspective, how does Hornbill improve things for you? Well, I think you'll agree that obviously the ability to better connect your teams, to give them better access to information, to be more informed will obviously improve the performance and the output from the team. You can put together the best possible team regardless of location, because you don't all have to be sat together in order to share knowledge. It's much more easy to collaborate globally with that. Notifications, but most importantly, I think you'll agree, Steve showed you a fairly powerful business process engine there that's very good at articulating your specific business requirements, but also very good at hiding the complexity from the end user or the analyst who has to interact with that, and keeping them informed and on track as to what they need to be doing at any point in time. And lastly here, in terms of being able to communicate value and provide better business decisions through being able to provide better dashboarding and MI back to you to allow you to inform business decisions and make a better fist of that. So in sort of wrapping up, how much does Hornbill cost? Everything sounds better in Italian, even how much it costs. So what does Hornbill look like from a cost perspective? Well, for small teams or large, it's a very scalable solution. We have a very simple per user per month pricing model, and again, just to articulate that, it's based around the analysts, not the end users. So if you're providing service, then you need to subscribe. If you're consuming that service, then you don't need to subscribe. It's free to use it. So for your analysts, it starts at £42.50 per user per month, and we have a scale of volume discount. So as you add more users, the cost per subscription actually drops off for each one that you add. Now, one unique thing that we do offer at Hornbill is the concept of a price for life promise, and it's written into our contracts. And basically what this essentially means is that as you subscribe to Hornbill, on the price plan that you subscribe to, we will fix that price for the life of your contract. So in the future, should we actually increase the cost of the subscriptions, you're actually protected or isolated against that, and you maintain on the price that you have, and any future additional subscriptions you put on are added based on the plan that you signed up to, not the plan that's in force at the time when you do the actual additional purchase. What's also nice is that written into that is the fact that actually if we do go and reduce the price of the Hornbill subscriptions, you have the option then to move to the cheaper plan as well. So this is a very unique feature of our contracts, and we think it's something that's worth pointing out to you at this point. So that's the price for life guarantee. In terms of what happens next, we started out earlier on talking about free implementation. Well, one of the other unique things that we offer as an organisation is the ability for you to put it to the test. So we're very confident in the fact that you'll love the solution and find good reasons to carry on using it. So what we actually ask you to do is put it to the test. We'll actually give you the solution for free. We'll implement it for free, as I talked about earlier on in the switch on, and you then get to try the solution in your environment with your data before you actually have to commit to it. So what can you expect during that free switch on? And just to put some context around that, we actually do all of that within 30 days. So we actually offer you 30 days of free service in what we call a free trial, and during that time we connect you with one of our subject matter experts, a product specialist, who would effectively work with you to provide all the assistance you require in the following areas to get you up and running. So I'm going to whiz through these very quickly, but in essence we'll help you integrate to your corporate email so you can inbound and outbound emails into the system through your shared support app mailbox, for example. We'll help you to connect to your directory service, so whether that's Active Directory, we use a protocol called SAML, which enables single sign-on and also automated provision of your users as well into the solution. We'll help you to import your users. We'll help you to get those set up in the system. Importing contacts, other static data into the system. We'll work with you to configure any aspects of the Hornbill applications that you've chosen to deploy. So if it's Service Manager, we'll help you to define and articulate SLAs, for example, and get those set up. Customizing any specific areas that you need, and most importantly, working with you to define some business workflow. So whether that's change management or problem management, whatever it might be. Specifically, most people start with incident management, so we'll help to set that up for you. Aside from that, obviously, as I said, if you get to the end of the 30 days, having set that all up for you and got the system up and running with your data in there, if you're happy, we ask you to subscribe. If you're not happy, it's entirely up to you to decide to reject the solution, and at which point, we all shake hands and walk away. There's no cost to you either way. So this whole concept of the 30-day free trial period and the free implementation is something that we extend to you. Gives you a chance to have a real good look at Hornbill. Don't just take our word for it. Actually use the system, see it up and running in your environment with your data, and then make a decision as to whether you want to progress with Hornbill going forwards. So thanks for your time today. I know there was a few questions, so perhaps we can try and address those quickly, Steve, over the next couple of minutes, and then we'll wrap up.
Sure. So a couple of questions have come up. Obviously, it's cloud-based solution. People picked up on that. Where are the data centers?
So just to cover on that, we have primarily two locations for data centers. We have a US set of data centers, and we've got a European set of data centers. Specifically in the European region, we have our data centers actually in the UK. So our primary and our secondary data centers are both actually in the UK, and obviously that means that your data doesn't leave the EU. If you're a UK-based company, obviously it doesn't even leave the UK.
Great, fantastic. Question we were touching on assets was can you integrate with SCCM?
Sure, it's probably a better question for you, Steve, technically, but in essence, yes. So we have a facility that allows you to pull through data from products such as SCCM, for example, where you might have an asset management tool that's out there discovering your assets. So we have a facility that allows you to pull that data through into Hornbill on a schedule.
Fantastic. A couple of questions we've got on here. Just have a look, just coming through here. So there's questions about what testing's been carried out on the software. Would you be able to share those, any certifications?
Sure. So Hornbill's platform obviously is, well, as an organisation, we're ISO 27001 certified. The product regularly goes through, or the service regularly goes through pen testing and other security testing. So certainly we better evidence that and provide you more clarity on that. What we tend to find during talking with customers is that you often have a security expert who has specific questions, who may want some answers to those. So we'd be happy to connect your security expert with a member of our cloud team to talk through any concerns, questions that you might have.
Okay. And I think it might be sort of linked to that, sort of questions about, if you have multiple tenants, are you able to accommodate this? So I suppose that could, and again, just trying to take some context on that. In terms of your actual individual instance of how you look at that, you have your own dedicated database. You are, if you like, insulated, isolated away from any other of our customers. And that logical. If you were talking about, can I support multiple customers on my single instance?
Absolutely, because we do that ourselves. We've got upwards of 500 customers we're supporting through our version of Hornbill. So yes, it's possible in both ways. But just to cover what Steve was saying there, your instance in our cloud is unique to you. It's not shared. You have your own database. You're completely isolated. So from that perspective, you're completely secure in your data being in our system.
Okay. And there was a question that came up a little bit earlier, which was asking specifically around contracts, renewals and expiry.
Sure, we haven't covered that today. Be happy to come back to you on email and just see if we can get a bit more context around what you're looking for there.
Yeah, I think that might be. So we've got Douglas's details, so we'll
follow up with you.
Follow up on that.
All right, brilliant.
So just wrapping up. See if any last questions that may come up. Last second, but if not, we can wrap up.
In that case, I'm going to hand over to Tatiana. Thanks, Steve, for a great demo, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. And over to Tat just to round up here.
Great, thank you, Abdi and Steve, for taking us through that. I hope all of you that joined today found it useful. If you'd like to find out more about Service Manager, please visit our website. Similarly, you can find out more about collaborative ITSM on our resource center on a URL displayed on your screen at the moment. If you're a Hornbill Sproutworks customer, you can get in touch with your relationship manager for any further questions, or simply email us at hello@hornbill.com. So we hope to hear from you soon, and have a nice day. Thank you very much for joining. Bye.